じゃあ、リサさんよろしくお願いします。じゃあお願いします。すみません。
Hello, and thank you for your enthusiastic welcome. Hello, everyone in this room. Hello, everyone in the Japanese translation room, in all the other rooms in the building, and hello, everyone online, and those people who will watch this for years to come, probably. So we are all part of creating a moment for other people here. So I want to tell you how this is going to go, because I would like it to be really useful to you. Not just that you hear some interesting concepts, but that you might even be able to leave this room with some ideas of how you might tackle one of your biggest impediments. Would that be good? I hope so. I hope that you will play along. Yeah. So in this keynote, I'm going to be zooming out to a big concept, and then zooming into something practical, zooming out again, zooming in, and toward the end, we're going to zoom way, 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 way out, all the way into outer space. Will you go with me to outer space? Okay. Okay, good. So our first big concept, the first zooming out we're going to do together, is what I see happening in the world of business, not just a certain industry, not just the Agile space, but the world of business in general, is that we are changing our ideas from the notion that organizations are machines. You know, machines. You can take them apart, you can fix them, put them back together. They'll run like that for a really long time. It's very, very, very stable, right? So we're moving, all of us, from this idea that organizations are machines more to the idea that organizations are like rainforests. Now, the idea of managing a rainforest or leading a rainforest or controlling a rainforest is sort of ridiculous, isn't it? But if you look really, really closely at a rainforest, you will see that life thrives there. Life thrives in lots of adversity. Life thrives in unexpected things that happen. So it is absolutely possible to participate in an ecosystem. And so this is the big shift. So if you think that it's hard to use Agile in your organizations, you're probably right. Most people are thinking about organizations as if they are still machines. Now, to be fair, parts of organizations run beautifully as machines. There's no need to change that. But what is happening more and more often is that our world is becoming, as you have undoubtedly heard, this acronym, volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. And guess what? Human beings aren't so good with these qualities. Agilists are better than the average, though, so we're a little bit ahead. So in an environment that is volatile, the best you can do is inspect and adapt and continue to make progress, continue to move toward your goal, and that's what we know how to do. Now, if VUCA wasn't enough, the nature of change itself has changed. And I learned about this for the first time in 2020. And I thought that this was an amazing addition to my understanding of why things are as difficult as they are. It used to be that we would go through big changes and then it would be stable for a while. And then another big change and it would be stable for a while. Anyone remember that? Did you ever experience that it was stable for a little while? Not so. And more of our life, more and more of our world is in this situation where change is these three things: perpetual, pervasive, and the most daunting of all, exponential. So perpetual, meaning that you don't get those periods of stability anymore. It's constant. Change is coming. Next one's coming. The next one's coming. The next one's coming. Right? Pervasive, meaning that it's not just happening in one part of your life or your work. It's happening everywhere, in every part of your existence at the same time. And exponential, meaning that the pace of change itself is rapidly accelerating. Rapidly accelerating. So one of the most horrifying things someone said to me recently is that the pace of change will never be slower than it is today. So how many of you feel like you've already experienced a lot of change? Like just in the last year, like it's been a lot of change. It's been like a little bit too much maybe even. Yeah. I hope those of you in the other rooms are raising your hands too if it's true for you. Yeah. So here's the thing. If we can't control the change that's coming at us again and again and again, where do we find our sense of security? Where do we find our sense of safety? And I want to make the pitch that we find it in Agile. So let's move into that. But first, I want to just recognize that this thrust into complexity, we've sort of been, ushered into complexity. We don't necessarily want to be there, but we don't have a choice. It's exhausting. It is exhausting. It would be really nice if we could just check off that little box at the bottom that says install the Agile and be done. Right? I can feel it in myself, the desire for someone to just tell me what to do. Tell me how to behave. Tell me what to build. And yet we are all of us, no matter what our role is, we are all called into being leaders. And a leader is simply someone who takes responsibility for the change they want to see in their own world. So, a little bit about me. Some of you know me and some of you don't. So these days I spend my time as an agility and leadership coach because you might have noticed that leaders are kind of the next bottleneck, right? I think it's pretty important for us to spend time there. Agile Coaching Institute, an organization I co-founded, trained over 10,000 Agilists in the knowledge, the skills, but also the beingness of Agile coaching. And this book, Coaching Agile Teams, is now 12 years old, and you might recognize some of these lovely people who are currently translating this book into Japanese, and I thank you very, very much. They gave a very moving talk yesterday, so if you didn't get to see it, catch it on the replay. I was in maybe the second generation of certified Scrum trainers, not the first, but pretty early on, And I have credentials in the Agile world and also the professional coaching world. Now, prior to that, I was a project management professional way back in 2000, like really, really early on, very early. And I was a project manager in all of these different industries and doing more and more complex projects and having more and more people report to me and eventually being a PMO leader twice. Apparently I needed more abuse, so I took the second job as a PMO director. And you would think that all of that experience would prepare me for Agile, but actually it was anti-helpful. So all that experience, the first 15 years of my career, when I learned about Agile, which was honestly quite by mistake, or maybe by good fortune, I hit a brick wall. Because I didn't understand that Agile comes from a completely different place than all the ways of working that we have ever had prior to Agile. So we'll be talking more about that as we go. So these are some practices, right? Now we're starting to zoom in a little bit. We're going to talk about Agile itself and Scrum in particular. So it's reasonable for people to see some of these practices and presume, oh, I get it. I know what Agile is. And there's an unlimited number of practices, right? It can be quite a confusing world if people don't understand that those practices are simply, each of them, one known pattern for generating a few principles and even a fewer values, human values, right? So it's really important to understand as we're working with people and as we're dealing with helping them through change and also helping ourselves through change, that we will constantly be confronted with our old mindset. And every time we are confronted with our old mindset or someone else's old mindset, it's an opportunity to shift to an ecosystemic view. So, you know about Scrum, Kanban, these are all collections basically of practices. We just collect them up underneath these frameworks, you know, because they do something predictable, right? Now, I wish someone had told me this early on. It took me years to discover this for myself, that the Agile frameworks themselves are intentionally incomplete. They're not meant to specify every single thing you need to do. They do need practices and behaviors and processes, all kinds of things from other places. We can name some of them: design thinking, lean startup, DevOps. We had this great keynote talk from David Bernstein yesterday about legacy code and extreme programming and bringing all of that forward, right? Also, we are meant to inspect and adapt our way into a way of working that works for our situation. Now, here's the point. Without capitulating, meaning without giving into these old structures, these structures from the machine age, the structures that no longer serve, right? And I get it, that's hard. Sometimes you can probably feel like you are a little salmon swimming upstream and the current is against you. How many people feel like that? Do you feel like a little salmon sometimes? I do. Now, here's the thing I love, is that the Agile frameworks are quite complete for metabolizing change. So this word metabolizing, I'm talking about when you eat food and your metabolism gets the nutrients out of the food, yeah? And this is the way we fuel our bodies. The same thing, this metaphor can happen if we think about welcoming change, just like we welcome food into our bodies. Welcoming it, enjoying it, not resisting it, and using our special skills to get the nutrients or the goodness out of the change that comes, and the next one, and the next one, because we will metabolize change again and again and again and again and again forever. Forever. Remember, you're not going to get off the change bus anytime soon, right? We're all riding that bus together. Now, people freak out when you tell them that change is perpetual and it's pervasive, and guess what? It's exponential, right? So they say, well, how can we possibly make progress? How could anything be safe? And I think agility does make it safe to change in very specific ways. You get these benefits, like never losing progress and having a more on-target customer impact, specifically these ways. Because you are regularly delivering business value, you don't lose progress, even when things change. Because you have these fast feedback loops, you can adjust when it's cheap, when it's easy, when it's no big deal. When you inspect and adapt, you get to amplify the good, and I think this is even more important. You get to correct the bad. Every business decision has unintended consequences. Everything we build, every service we create has downside effects we didn't expect. And we're not supposed to be, fortune tellers. We're not supposed to know. And if we use Agile well, we can correct the bad before it gets really bad. And of course, amplify the good. How about having a built-in cadence to pause, reconsider, and consciously bring in change? Because change is going to be happening out there all the time. And then planning again. with all this new knowledge you have, planning again to deliver a more on-target customer impact, because we don't have time to create stuff people don't use, they don't like. Plus, it's a wasted life. So, I want to be really specific now, since we're at the Scrum gathering, and talk about how Scrum enacts each of these benefits for metabolizing change. So, we have all seen this diagram. Here's what I like to add to it. I like to add this other feedback loop. I imagine that the sprint review and the retrospective are so practical that the information we get from them goes right into the product backlog, and optimally, the results from the retrospective are coming right into the next sprint backlog. It's this beautiful loop. Yeah. So let me show you about these ways that we can get these benefits from metabolizing change. So let's look at the first one. Never losing progress. People are worried about this, aren't they? Well, if everything's changing, how do you get anything done? Well, let's show them how we can never lose progress. Specifically, this backlog is small because we're only planning a duration of less than 4 weeks. Most people are planning 2 weeks or 1 week now. It's a duration that we can somewhat control, especially if people leave us alone while we're delivering. So at the end, we have something real, something that customers will like. If they don't like it, we get to find out about it and fix it. That's great. Never lose progress, even when things are changing. How about adjusting while it's cheap? Okay, the stand-up is the first place to adjust while it's cheap. Every single day, the team is creating a commitment to one another about how they're going to get stuff done between now and the next stand-up. Constant adjustments happening. Adjustment is also happening in the sprint review, where you have the people who care about the product giving you feedback about the product. Now, I understand that I'm talking in somewhat ideal terms, but I want to make sure you understand the ideal so you know the sacrifice you might be making. For example, if real customers or people who care about the product in your organization don't show up to the sprint review. That's a significant sacrifice. You're losing out on a lot of the benefits of being able to metabolize change, for example. The retrospective is another place to adjust while it's cheap, and as I said, these things go right into the next sprint. Very, very short period of time, somewhat controllable. What about amplifying the good and correcting the bad? Well, where that happens is looking at the product. We deliver this thing, and people who know about it, people who want it, look at it and they're like, oh, that's good. That's not so good. And again, sprint review is where that happens, and the information goes right into the product backlog. So if the changes they want to make are important enough, they come right into the next sprint. What about bringing in change? Well, that one's pretty simple, right? We have this backlog, we have this sprint planning event, we have a specific time to bring in change, and we don't want to do it any other time. So how about a more on-target customer impact? Sprint planning. Sprint planning is the time to say, what did we learn from the last sprint that we're going to bring into this next sprint to be more on target for what our customers actually want? Plan a short sprint backlog. Again, short period of time, less than 4 weeks. And guess what? We're thrilled at the end because the business value is more on target. So here are my top 5 tips for getting all these benefits. The first one is one of our Scrum values, focus. It is absolutely paramount, very important, that we do not allow distractions into the sprint. So people really have to think, do I need to bring this up with the team or not? Is this important to what they're doing right now or not? If it's not, it can wait till the sprint review or the retrospective, whatever is appropriate, right? The second one is getting to done. If you don't actually deliver that increment of value at the end, it is really, really hard to bring the next change in. Very hard. You have completely tied the product owner's hands, right? So Don't carry work over to the next sprint. Just don't do it. Change. Yes, we want to bring in change, but not all the time. Not all the time. There's a sprint backlog. It's short. It's a short period of time. Let those people deliver that. Right? And this one I think is really important, is being courageous when inspecting and adapting. Because our legacy is this machine model, I don't know if you know this, but this machine model and the idea of hierarchy and a hierarchy in an organization, guess what it was created for? It was created to assess blame when something goes wrong. So we are actually really adept at hiding. Do you recognize this in yourself? I recognize it in myself. So as much as we can, bring online that Scrum value of courage and hide nothing when we inspect and adapt. And then finally, get good at all those events. I circled sprint planning, retrospective, sprint review, all of them. Stand up. I circled them multiple times. That's because you're not meant to just do them to get them done. You're meant to actually get the juice out of them, the full purpose out of them. And actually, even you're meant to get better at them over time. Like even more efficient, even more meaning, even more efficient and meaning is good enough. Yeah. So here's what I'd like you to do. I would like you to turn to someone near you and just for 1 minute, just a short period of time, just talk to them about anything that you have found interesting so far. And if you haven't been paying attention at all, you've been doing email or whatever, that's okay, let your partner talk. Yeah, or just talk about the weather, it doesn't matter. So when I want your attention, I'll do this, and then we'll see how it goes. Okay? Are you game for it? So the question is, what's been interesting to you so far? Go ahead. Good, we're all quiet now. Great. I hope that was interesting to you. One of the things about, I think all people, but especially adults, and as we get older, it's really important for us to have time to talk to one another to integrate information we just heard. Right? So I'm wanting you to have a few moments of that as we go through this keynote. And as we get more specific, I'm going to be asking you to think about something real in your world. And so it might be useful to talk to the same person in a little while. So these are just my top 5 tips, by the way. I'm sure that many of you in this room who are really good at this could have a different top 5 tips. That's great. That's super great. So change. Change is coming to us from outside of our organizations, just by the nature of our volatile, complex, ambiguous, blah, blah, blah world, right? If that's not enough, change comes to us through Agile too, but in a very specific and sometimes uncomfortable way. Change comes to us through impediments. So I say that agility is a relentless impediment revealer. It doesn't create them, but it reveals the things that people would rather not look at, right? All the ways that the organization is not a match for the results that it says it wants, right? So Ken Schwaber said it this way, like, day after day, thrown up in your face, you're gonna get to see these impediments over and over again. And one of the things I often say, it's kind of a sad thing to say, is the only thing Agile is really guaranteed to deliver all the time is impediments. So here's the thing. If you're encountering impediments, congratulations, it's working. It's actually working. And I love what John Smart says in his book, Sooner, Safer, Happier. He says, impediments are not in the path, impediments are the path. Impediments are the path. So if we work on one impediment, clear it, work on the next, clear it, it will create a path for us. So I'd like you to get an impediment in your mind right now, something real in your life, something real in your work, on one of your teams, or maybe if you work at the organization level, something at that level. So I'll give you a moment to think about that and go ahead and write it down. If you have something to write on, go ahead and write down this impediment that you're thinking about. Now, an impediment is simply anything that is slowing you down or stopping you from delivering the value you know you can deliver. Nice, thank you. So we're going to put that on the shelf for a moment. We'll come back to that impediment in a little while. But I first want to give you some fuel to be able to work with it, okay? I think one of the most amazing things about us as Agilists is that we have an emerging superpower. This is an emerging superpower for a world in constant change. We're ahead of other communities. We're ahead of most of the organizations that we're working in, right? So this idea to metabolize change for good, to get the nutrition out of it, it's a superpower. You might think it's normal, but I want to let you know it's special. It is very, very important for the type of world we're in right now that someone has this superpower, and I'm really glad it's us. So let me be more specific about the types of changes that happen, and just this little model called edge theory of change. It's a very simple model, but I find it really profound to help people see what's happening in a given change. Basically, on one side, you have what's the current reality, what people would say, here's my primary perspective. It's, you know someone's talking about their current reality when they're like, yeah, this is how I am, or this is how it is. They're talking about their current reality. But there's also all the time a secondary perspective happening. That secondary perspective is what's trying to emerge, right? And it might not be very clear yet. That's okay that it's hazy. That's okay, it's emerging, right? It's not here yet. But the idea is what we do as Agilists is we help people cross this edge from what they know to what's new, to what's coming, essentially. Now, here's the great news, is that you know how to do this. Because life has put you at edges already, and you've already crossed them. So let me just tell you a couple of them. From being a couple to being parents. How many people have done that? Okay, don't you know there is nothing that would prepare you for the moment you bring that baby home? Right? You could go to all the classes you want to go to. You can get all the equipment you want to. But when you bring that baby home, forevermore your life is changed. And so if you cross this edge, you know how to cross edges. Here's another one. This is my husband's particular edge. He had horrible stage fright. He loves playing the guitar. Horrible stage fright. He would have panic attacks in front of rooms of people. And he would put himself in that situation again and again and again because something was pulling him to the other side because he wanted to share this specific type of guitar music. And so now he plays guitar at open mics in bars. Doesn't have panic attacks anymore, but it took a long time. But there was something he wanted. It was worth it. And here's another one that many of us have experienced. All of us have, but to lesser or more degrees, which is, being able to go anywhere you want to being in lockdown during COVID, right? These are all edges we've crossed. Now, Agile itself puts us at edges too, but it's okay because we know how to do this. So here are some of the really typical ones, simple ones, from being told what to do to volunteering for tasks. That one freaks a lot of people out, doesn't it? Just that one. But it's important, it's an important edge to cross. And if you've already crossed it, your job is to help other people cross it. Here's another one, deciding for the team. This is what managers have typically done in that machine model mentality, right? To letting the team decide, because guess what? The team is closer to what's going on. And when you have an ecosystem that's constantly changing, a manager can't make a decision for a team. How about avoiding failure at all costs? And on the other side of that edge is embracing the idea of failing fast to learn. I love the acronym FAIL, First Attempt in Learning. Yeah. So these are things that we advocate in the Agile community. And if they're really sort of normal to you, I want you to understand they're not normal for other people. These are the edges you are meant to help them cross, and many, many more. Right? Now, there are a few very common edges that organizations are going through right now, and that we as human beings are going through right now. So I want to talk to you about those and be listening for, which of these might be happening at my workplace, or which of these might be happening with me. So first, the common change edges for organizations. One is this idea of these inflexible plans that deliver at the very end. Therefore, we've got to hold all that change off. Change is absolutely horrible if this is our primary perspective, right? To the perspective and to the behaviors that we can have flexible plans that welcome change because, what we talked about before, we're delivering all the time, regularly. Here's another one, specifying the product and waiting for delivery at the end. That used to be, and maybe it still is in your organization, a really normal behavior. What we're wanting people to do is to cross the edge to this behavior, to guiding the product all along the way, and helping them see they actually have a lot more control if they do that. They're going to have a lot more success if they do that. How about this one? Bottom-up annual budgeting to fund a bunch of disconnected projects, like individual projects that people advocate for. I'm sure a lot of you are still dealing with this. This is, again, left over from the machine era, right? What's emerging are these continual budgeting processes, usually of longer-lived projects or teams that are linked to how much delivery capability we actually have, delivery capacity we actually have in the organization. Wouldn't it be nice not to have too much work in progress? It's possible. But understand these are like really big changes, really big changes. So just notice which ones of these might be happening in your workplace. And now we're going to talk about you. Because these change edges in the organization guess what? They create change edges in you. And so here are some really common ones that are happening for a lot of people right now. One is alleviating discomfort as fast as possible. As soon as I feel discomfort, I'll do anything to distract myself so that I don't have to deal with the discomfort. What's emerging, what's a better strategy for the world we're actually in, is to allowing yourself to experience the discomfort and saying to yourself, this is just part of the process. This is just what it means to change and to change and to change and to change. I'm going to experience discomfort. How about this one? Waiting for change to happen from above to being an agent of change from where I sit, no matter what my place is in the organization. For Agile to work well, this one's got to get activated, right? What about doing what I'm told to asking questions and voicing my opinion? Not necessarily because I know better, but because when we all do that, then we get closer to what's really going to work. Because things are emerging, none of us actually knows at the very beginning what's going to work. All right. So, here's what I see happening in organizations. I see a lot of these change edges at play. Some of them are getting crossed, some aren't. There are other ones as well. I see us having a superpower to help people with these changes. But I also see us having problems alleviating impediments and crossing edges. You know why? The conversations we are not having. So start to think right now about some conversations that you might have been avoiding. Now, having difficult conversations is actually a skill. Here's the good news. We can all learn how to do it. Right? It's not that like you have to be powerful in a certain way or have some inborn talent that maybe you think you don't have and other people do. You can learn how to bring in your courage. There's a really good reason courage is a core Scrum value, everyone. Really good reason to bring in your courage to have those important conversations. When I work in organizations, and especially with leadership teams, sometimes the weight of all those conversations we're not having is so heavy. I can feel it. I can feel it in the air. Right? So, remember that impediment you thought about a little while ago? So recall that to your mind for a moment. And then think about this. To address that impediment, what conversation do you need to have? Now, it might be several conversations you need to have. But for what we're going to do next, pick the easiest one. Pick the easiest conversation, the most friendly person, the one that's going to be most open to what you want to do. Because what I'm showing you here is a process you can use again and again and again to work through these impediments, to help people cross change edges by having these courageous conversations. So do you have people or a person in mind? Do you have a person in mind? Anyone? Got a person in mind? Okay, good. So I'm going to help you get ready to have that conversation. So in this next part, I'm going to go fairly slowly because I'm going to offer you some questions, some ideas, and if a question feels useful to you and an answer comes to your mind, write it down. If it doesn't feel useful, don't worry about it. Move on to the next thing. Yeah. So my suggestion is that there are 2 steps to getting ready to have this courageous conversation. The first step happens inside of yourself. It's the inner work. And then the second step, and only after the first step, is the outer work, which eventually results in you going to have this conversation. So here's the thing. What we're doing is not just bringing in a whole new way to work. What we're doing is bringing in a whole new way of thinking about how to work. And to the extent that you're a little bit ahead of the other people in your organization, it can be really frustrating. It can be incredibly frustrating when they don't come along with you as easily as you might like, right? And so over time, that frustration can build up to the point where you're actually not ready to have a conversation with someone because what's in front is all of your own emotional turmoil, right? So this is why this step one is so important. So, okay, we're going through this moment by moment here together. So think about that conversation that you need to have. And here's a question for you. What is your intention for having that conversation? What do you want? What do you intend to happen? And because we need a vision to help drag ourselves over the edge to have the conversation, this next question is really important. What's the possible difference that could happen if this conversation goes really well? Just imagine it goes well. It goes better than you imagine. What can happen? What becomes available? What gets loosened up? What new ideas come forth? So allow yourself to just fantasize for a moment. How good could it get if this goes well? The next question follows that vision or that fantasy and gets a little more specific, like what things will actually be happening or not happening if this goes well. Getting more specific here. What might you be experiencing? What might others experience? The final question here is, what do you need to ask for? There's often a request that needs to be made, and it needs to be made very clearly. So get clear for yourself. What do you need to ask for? Or what do you need to assert? What do you need to say? What do you need to put on the record? So when I get ready for one of these courageous conversations, I use these questions and I write all of this stuff down. It's amazing what happens when you get it on paper or on your iPad or whatever, that you can actually see that it's possible. Okay, so now I'm going to invite you to have a conversation with the same person or people you talked to a little while ago. And just talk with the other person about what you're thinking about related to having a courageous conversation. And if this hasn't worked for you at all, like you have no situation in mind, that's okay. You get to practice listening to the other person, and maybe you could ask them some questions that will help them enliven what they want in this conversation a little more. Okay, just a couple minutes here. Go ahead and see if you can apply this. Thank you. Was it useful to talk to someone else? A little bit? Yeah. So I've forgotten about those of you online. Sorry about that. And if you're watching this later, here's what I suggest. Call a friend. Have the same sort of conversation. And if that's not available to you, once you've gone through these questions, get up and walk around. Change your venue. Move to a different room, walk outside, come back in. Do something that allows your entire set of intelligences to come online so that you can really get into the depth of what is needed, what requests you need to make, what you need to assert, what your intention is. These are really important questions. Okay, so the inner work, pretty important, don't you think? Because without it, all you're doing is going to this other person and you're going blah, 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 and they're confused. They're maybe aggravated because they were doing something else. You're not clear. I think that a lot of the reasons that these conversations don't go well is that this inner work doesn't get done. And if you're not clear, they're not going to respond well. But when you are clear, you go on to step 2, which, believe it or not, is practicing. You know, like maybe if you actually worked with this person that you talked with just now, or these couple people you just talked with, maybe you would say, hey, I've got this really kind of scary moment where I need to say something that might not be well taken. Can I practice it with you? Because here's what's going to happen. The first time you practice, it's going to be horrible. It's going to be horrible. You're going to use all these words. You're going to not really want to move into the real topic, and so you'll say a bunch of things that will confuse the other person. But if your friend says to you, okay, that was good, and here's where I got confused, or here's where I got worried, then you can say, okay, let me try again. You try again. Your friend gives you some more feedback. You try again. Your friend gives you some, what is this called? Inspect and adapt? Sounds like a pretty good idea to me. It works for conversations too. Yeah? So practice. And when you get ready to have the conversation, I suggest that you load your intention into your body, into your mind, into your energy, because you'll allow that intention to guide how the conversation happens then. Because it's really easy, especially if you're not very happy with this person, it's really easy to get sidetracked by something they do or something they say. And if you're not sticking to your intention, you'll follow them right off the road and you won't get what you need. The edge won't get crossed or the impediment won't get alleviated. And then go do it. Go do it. And of course, everything we're doing has 2 outcomes. One is the outcome of the actual conversation, but the other is the outcome of how good you're good at having these conversations. So every single time you do it, you get better. You know, we're meant to inspect and adapt all of this stuff, even the way we interact with each other. Okay. Now I'm going to take you somewhere really, really big. And a place that is a little bit beautiful, but also a little bit terrifying. To get us ready for that, I want you to just imagine that Agile really is this brilliant, emergent response to the complexity, the volatility, the era of acceleration that we're in. Imagine that it's arrived at exactly the right time for our volatile conditions. So I'm going to invite you to use your imagination, to take an imaginary trip with me. You're just going to do it in your own mind. You can downcast your eyes to the floor. If you want to go inward a little bit, that's fine. What you're going to do is imagine that there is a little point of light right here on your forehead, the third eye. And that little point of light beams out into outer space. All the way out into outer space. And you're so curious that you want to follow that point of light. And so you allow that to happen. You notice that you've left the dwelling you're in, the building you're in. You notice as you go further out into outer space that you can see the city or the town you're in. As you go further into outer space, you start to see the geography or the landscape of the area you're in. Further out, you can now start to see land masses. And you go all the way, all the way, all the way out into the quiet of outer space. The quiet, the void, the calm. Just allow yourself for a moment to enjoy this perspective. And in a moment on the screen, you're going to get to see the most beautiful thing. So open your eyes and see Earth rise. You're viewing the Earth from space, and you notice this beautiful blue-green ball with the white clouds wisping around it. It's so beautiful. And it's our home. It's the one we all share. And right now, we're endangering it. So to move us into this territory of this planetary view, the planetary challenge that we are all facing, I want to share with you a few lines from a poem. It's 3:43 in the morning and I'm awake because my great-great-grandchildren won't let me sleep. My great-great-grandchildren ask me in dreams, what did you do while the planet was plundered? What did you do when the earth was unraveling? Surely you did something when the seasons started failing? As the mammals, the birds, the reptiles were all dying? Did you fill the streets with protest when democracy was stolen? What did you do once you knew? What did you do once you knew? Those are the first lines from a poem called Hieroglyphic Stairway by Drew Dellinger. I heard them for the first time 12 years ago, and they have been ringing in my ear ever since. They have not let me sleep, even though I have gone to sleep for a good portion of that time. Even though I know the situation we're in, I haven't done as much as I would have liked, and maybe you feel a little bit of that too. So we are already experiencing planetary challenges that are unique to our time. We've never been in this place before as a species. Some people call it a species moment. This is an inflection point. And what will happen to us in the future depends a lot on what's happening now. So sadly, when this poem was written about 20 years ago, the idea of these planetary challenges facing us in our great-great-grandchildren's lifetime seemed really fast. But guess what? We don't have to wait for our great-great-grandchildren. It's happening now. Climate disasters, biodiversity loss and extinction, growing poverty and inequality, rise of extremism, and economic systems that run on growth at all costs, even the cost to our own home. It's okay to feel sad about this. I believe we have to feel this to face it. Now, in this time, as in all times, there are people who act. There are people who take chances. There are people who say, not on my watch. I will not have this while I'm here. I will do something about it. My hope is that I can help create awareness and create a movement in the entire worldwide Agile community for us to say, not on our watch, we can do something about this. The many thises. People call it a meta-crisis. There's not just one crisis, there's all of these crises that are all related to one another. Guess what? You don't have to figure it all out. You just have to do what's right in front of you that you can do. One of the things I'm doing is I've just started this program called Regenerative Leadership, because I'm really clear that my own leadership in the world is not good enough. It's not a match for this era of these multiple planetary challenges, and for the idea of helping create a network of networks of Agilists all over the world that are doing something about it. And I'm really clear that my job is to help the next generation of leaders become this kind of regenerative leader. But I've got to do it first myself. So I'm really enjoying this program already. One of the things I have already learned in this program is that there are 4 main reasons why we have created the devastation that we have created on our planet. And these roots go back a few hundred years, some of them a couple thousand years, right? Basically, humans over nature, the separation that we think we're actually not part of nature is one of the reasons, the root causes. Another is our inner wisdom being dampened by our outer striving, getting stuff done and not paying attention to the answers that are actually in here. Another one is the left brain hemisphere over the right brain hemisphere. That was a split that happened actually not that long ago. Not that long ago. And another one is the masculine qualities dominating the feminine qualities and marginalizing those qualities. So the idea is that if we can heal these 4 areas of separation, that we will be in an age of regeneration. And what that means to me is that we will find new solutions to the meta-crisis that we could never think of before. You know, Albert Einstein famously said, today's problems cannot be solved by the same level of consciousness that created them. So let's dive into just one of these areas of separation together for just a moment. And it's the separation of the masculine and the feminine qualities. So here are just some of the qualities. We put them in these baskets, a basket of masculine qualities, a basket of feminine qualities. And I want to make sure that you understand that I'm not talking about people's bodies. I'm not talking about their gender identities. I'm just talking about essence energies, that we can categorize these 2 ways. And if you look at the things on the left, these are the things that the machine model really prized, didn't it? Yeah, let's get more. Let's do it. Let's take action. A bias for action without even thinking things through a lot of the time, right? And the things on the right have been marginalized in society at large, but not necessarily in our community. So, I believe that we are ahead here as well, that we're already doing the work to heal this separation in the worldwide Agile community. Here's just one little way that I think we're doing that. So, of course, we're goal-oriented. Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that at all. We need these masculine essence energies. We just don't need them to dominate the feminine essence energies. See, here's how we do goal orientation in the Agile world. We do it in a collaborative way. We do it with interdependence, and we do it with a bias for flow. My God, we talk about flow all the time, right? So we're already ahead. I want you to realize how important this is, how precious you are, how important your work is for the big thing that's going on, which is our ability to have a habitat on this planet. There are amazing things happening already. I think this movement has already started. Here are some places for you to tap into. One of them is right here. The Women in Agile conference that happens next month has this amazing keynote speaker. She has been in all of the war-torn areas of the world helping build peace. That's what she does. And then you're going to have this amazing open space where you can explore all these various topics, whatever is important to you. So that's right here. Also, there are worldwide communities online starting to happen now, and here are two. At agilityimpact.org, that's a place you can go to read about what other people are already doing in the Agile community about some of these gigantic planetary challenges. Yeah, like helping a democracy emerge in Sudan, for example, using agility. Isn't that cool? There's also an agility meetup, Agility Impact meetup. So check that out as well. These are just some places to start. This past year, at Agile 2022 and at the Scrum Gathering in Lisbon, we had a panel keynote where 5 people came to tell their stories of what they're doing, how they are already applying Agile to these big things that matter to us. So, as I end here, I really want to make the pitch that we have everything we need. We have this emerging superpower to metabolize change for good. We are already, as a worldwide community, starting to heal some of these divisions that have created the mess. You know, I used to think to myself, like, oh, wouldn't it be great if there was a worldwide community that would already like move into action to deal with these things? And then a friend of mine said, like, aren't you talking about the Agile community? I'm like, yeah, I didn't realize it, but I am. We're already set up. And you know what we love to do? We love to experiment and learn and share and make things better together. That's what we love to do as a community. And as I've experienced your community here, I'm aware of how much you love talking to each other. Oh my gosh, it is so lively out there in the exhibit hall, in between sessions, how much you appreciate each other, how much reverence you hold for one another. You're an amazing community, and you are part of an amazing worldwide community of Agilists. We can do a lot together. So this beautiful place that we call home. I have one final challenging question for you just to think about. And it's this. What are you applying Agile to that is worthy of you? Thank you. So that last bit might have been a little bit heavy. Yeah? So let's just burn it off a little bit. Go ahead, any online, in person, just stand up and move around a little bit just for 30 seconds, and then we're going to do Q&A. Go ahead, stand up, move around, burn it off. I love it. All right, so be thinking about what question you might want to ask. It might be a question in general, or it might be something specific to the situation you were thinking about as we went through the keynote. We'll take questions in here, in the other rooms, online, and we'll have a side-by-side interpreter for this part. Please take care of your bodies. If you want to stay standing up, do it. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much for your talk. So what I really was thinking about during this, while listening to you speak, is that first of all, I'm really new to this community, and I mean, I'm a first timer here, and I'm really new to the concept of Agile itself. And while I'm trying to grasp my way into like how to practice Agile myself, or I mean, how to get myself into the mindset of Agile. Mm-hmm. But as you said, it's kind of really hard because I've really been used to this kind of hierarchical style of working where my boss would basically tell me what to do, and if he wanted to do something else, then I had to go with him. And I was in an academic field, so my boss was a professor, and he would, work on something that he was interested in for, maybe 2 or 3 years, and he would get kind of bored. It might not work out, and then I have to go to the next. And I found my way having fun doing like different things and all that, but when I'm trying to work and I'm trying to embrace myself as one of the participants in, in the business, in the team, it's really hard for me to kind of come forward and, do the things that I need to do. And is there kind of an advice that you could give me so I can get, make my first step towards being that kind of person, like a leader kind of person?
セスさん、じゃあ通訳お願いします。
はい、聞こえますか？
聞こえてます。
はい。今、講演内容、ありがとうございます。こう聞きながら考えていたことはですね、私自身はこのアジャイルコミュニティ新参で、アジャイルも非常に私にとってはまだ新しいコンセプトなんで、その実践方法、マインドセットに対して、まだまだ、馴染みが、それほどなく、やはり難しいんですね。今までそのヒエラルキーの中で、序列のある中で、仕事をしていた現場でした。実は私の上司は、大学の教授ですね。ですからいわゆるアカデミックな環境で、言われるがままに、仕事を命じられるがままにやっていた。そして、その教授は興味のあるものをやり、それが何年か経って、興味を失うと次のものに取り掛かる、そういうような環境であったので、いろいろやって楽しめたのは事実です。しかし今となって私の置かれている環境では、チームの参加者、積極参加がやはり、目指すところになってきている。しかし私はその積極的に進んで、自分からなかなか、何か自発的に進められない、このところ、ここが苦しいんです。もしそれを、もっと進めやすくするに、自分として動きやすくする取り掛かりのヒントがあれば欲しいんですけれども、お願いします。
The first thing I'll tell you is that you're not alone. And you look around. I mean, like, really look around. Will you all look at her? Is she alone? Does she have you to talk to? If you're willing to talk to her, raise your hand. I mean, like, really, be serious about it. Are you willing to talk to her about this? Raise your hand. So you have some friends here, right? And
まずお一人だけではないですよ。周りを見渡してください。大勢の、人が集まってきていますよね。皆さんも、会話を、彼女と進められますよね。できる人はいますかということで、今、挙手を求められました。Go ahead, please.
thank you. So you are at an edge. Remember that triangle?
Yeah.
You're at an edge. What's primary to you is I do what I'm told, I follow my professor's interests, and I find ways to have fun separate from that, or make it fun for me somehow, even though it's not my choice. Right? That's primary for you. Let me translate.
そういう意味で、今、チェンジエイジ、三角形の話しましたよね。あそこに立ってるじゃないですか。考えてみれば。今までは言われたことを進める。そして、教授の持ってる興味に合わせて、それを進める。興味がなくてもやるし、その中で自分の興味のあるところを何とか見つけ出す。そのような、状況に置かれていました。
So, what's emerging for you, the secondary perspective, is I am this really smart person. I am this really creative person. And I want to express myself. I want to be part of something outside of the hierarchy. How can I really be part of this team and take on my own leadership, leading myself first? These are the questions you're asking yourself, right? And so here's the thing. You're just on the top of that edge right now. That's all.
ですから、そこで出てくるのが、その二次的な気づきなんですよね。自分は結構頭がいい、そしてクリエイティブな力を持っている。だから私ももっと表に出てですね、チームの一員としてリーダーとしてですね、進んでいきたい。まずそれは率先ということで自分を率先する。単にそのエッジに立っていることに、いるということの気づきから始まると思うんです。
So, two things help someone cross the edge. Information about the other side, number one. And number two, a vision of why crossing that edge is worth it. Because you definitely have to give up something to cross the edge. Right now, you might be saying to yourself, I'm giving up some sort of safety or security by staying small, right? But you need to be able to create for yourself the vision of why is it worth it for me to act outside the hierarchy? Why is it worth it for me to extend myself and to meet other Agilists and find out what their stories are, or whatever it is for you? So my suggestion is that you, number one, talk to some of these people, get information. What's it like? And number two, as you do that, start thinking about the vision for yourself. Why is this worth it for you to cross that edge? And I know it is. You know why? You've been the first person to ask a question in this keynote and the one yesterday. So you're already taking on your own leadership. You're already doing it. Yeah? So I just want to encourage you to keep going.
ここでどうやってそのエッジを越えていくかということになりますね。ではその、渡り切った先にあるのは何かということの情報集め、そしてそこに行き着く価値があるかどうか、そのために何か代償はあるでしょう。例えば今小さく安全安心な状態にあるところが変わる可能性ですね。そういう意味ではでもヒエラルキーから何とか抜け出していくということですから、自分のビジョンは何なのかということ、それを設定して、ここをエッジを渡り切る価値があるということを、自分で、確認する。そしてこういう場ですから、他にアジャイルについて語っている人いっぱいいます。そういう人たちともぜひ会話を交わしていくということですね。話を交わす。そういうことによっていろいろ知っていくことになります。今回基調講演でも一番最初に質問を今出している自分を見てみるとですね、すでにその変化を求めている様子が見て取れます。そこからますます進んでください。
How many of you benefited from her question?
今の質問、参考になった方、
Yeah.
挙手をお願いします。
I acknowledge your courage.
Thank you so much.
That will let you
And
cross
thank you
the
so much
edge.
for your advice.
勇気ある質問だったと思います。
はい、ありがとうございます。ではオンラインからでもご質問、他の部屋からでもご質問いただけますので、先着順で声出してください。
Online people can also turn on their mics and ask questions. It will be able to be heard.
オンラインから質問よろしいでしょうか。
May I ask one over the Zoom?
経営者へのコーチングもしているという話だったと思ってます。で、2つ質問があります。経営者の場合はどのような人と話したくなることが多かったのか。で、2つ目は、その経営者はどんな準備ができていないことが多かったのかっていう2つを聞きたいです。
My question is as follows. Can you hear me, Lisa?
I can, thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'm online asking the questions about coaching to corporate management, which I think you alluded to in your presentation. I have two quick questions related to that effort on your in your experience. Who are these people trying to get a conversation going with? And what kind of preparations were they lacking initially in your estimation?
So to the question of who are the people that we're wanting to get this conversation going with, I think it's anyone who's in the way of progress. So it can be a manager of a team all the way up to the top leadership of the organization. Now here's the thing. Most people don't understand that the behavior they used to have that was successful is now an impediment. So the more we can be really compassionate with them and accompany them on their own change, the more successful we're going to be.
さて、最初の質問の答えを進めます。オンラインの方聞こえますか？
聞こえています。
はい、ありがとうございます。どの相手と、会話をしたくてというところの最初とかで、あるいはどういう人に対して話を進めていきたいか、だったのでしょうかという質問の部分について答えるとですね、基本的には妨げになっている、相手方ですね。これはあるそのチームを率いるマネージャー職かもしれませんし、経営陣の中の人であればもっと最上層部というか一番トップの経営陣のところのメンバーがもしかすると対象になる可能性がありますよね。でここが面白いことで、今までうまくやっていたんですよ、こういう人たちは。それがうまく回らなくなったというところにあるので、こういう会話を持っていこうとしたときに、そのことに対して非常に温かくですね、対処していかないと会話を進めるのが難しくなるという点があります。
Will you ask me the second question again, please?
Yes. The second question is what preparations seemed to be lacking initially for these people that you were coaching to be able to have that conversation that they wanted to do?
So for people to have the type of conversation that we walked through in this keynote, I think it's just knowing that you have to prepare for a conversation that's lacking. I mean, most of us just go and talk to people with no preparation whatsoever. We don't get ourselves clear. We don't make clear requests. We don't articulate what's important. And therefore, when we go to have the conversation unprepared, it usually doesn't go very well. And then you think, oh, well, I guess we just have to live with this impediment. Or, oh, well, I guess that's just the way that person is and I can never change it. Neither one of those things are true. And here's the good news. If you do have a conversation and it doesn't go well, it's not the end. You get to try again. Maybe this time, learning from the experience and getting better.
そうですね。2つ目のところはどのような準備が不足していた様子だったかという質問だったという認識で、答えていくと、まず、会話というのは今回の基調講演でも、指し示したような会話をやろうということにおいては、とにかく何も準備せずに、会話に臨んでしまう、というところからすると、まず自分の内面的な準備から始まって、どういうような依頼をかけるのかということをはっきりさせる。それからどのポイントとして重要なところを押さえてはっきりさせていくということ、これを事前にやらずに、もうなんていうか会話しにもう準備なしで入っていって、そうするとダメだったらやってみたけどそのような人だから結局変えられないしうまくいかなかったおしまいというふうになりがちですよね。でもこんなことは全くなくて、うまくいかなかったとしてももう一度トライすることも可能ですよね。そしてそれ1回目の体験を糧にして、もう一度トライすることもできるわけですから、とにかく、そういうことになると思いますね。
I think we probably have time for one more question, either online or here. I see someone about to get out of her seat.
Yay. すみません、じゃあ日本語でごめんなさい、言わせてください。私たちはウーマンアジャイルジャパンは1年前から立ち上がって、その女性のリーダーを増やしていくっていうことに取り組み始めました。何日か前にすごくショックなニュースがあって、そのアメリカのGAFAとかその IT 系の先進的な企業で、女性を多く取り入れている会社さんたちがみんなそのレイオフをしていると。でそのレイオフの割合がやっぱり女性とか、契約社員さんとか、そういったマイノリティが多いっていうニュースが飛び込んできて、で女性のリーダーを増やしていくっていうことをやっぱり意識的にやっていこうっていう流れの中で、結局これが意図的なのか、たまたまなのか、私にはそれは分からないんですけれど、結果として、そういう女性が減って、そのリーダーが減っていくって言ってるそのスナップショットがあるっていうのを目の当たりにした時に途方に暮れてしまいました。で、純粋にこれをどういうふうに自分として受け取ればいいのか、でそういったところをリサにもぜひこの印象というか、あなたがそのニュースをどういうふうに受け取ったかっていうのを聞いてみたいのと、そこから私たちはどういうふうに進んでいくべきなのか、っていうところをちょっと話してみたいなと思って立っていました。
Thank you. Allow me to ask a question in Japanese. I've been involved in the Women in Agile conference, and its impetus relates to increasing the leaders who are women. But just a few days ago, there was some shocking news that came through to us here regarding leading IT company in the U.S. Where layoffs were announced, and it seemed to indicate that the proportion of women, minorities, and other people who were on short-term contracts there was a higher proportion of those people being affected. So if this IT company, by the way, was making news also in its initiative to try to get more leaders who were women, and they were hiring, trying to be more active in hiring women, and yet now we see this. So what happened? Was this just some sort of happenstance, or is there some intention behind it? And there's so few leaders who are women. I feel so hopeless in this kind of when you hear about this, and I'm just trying to purely, first of all, ask your support in helping me accept this, or I should say, how should I accept this? Is my question to you. And also, I wanted your impressions on this type of news that's been coming out, and then finally, how you would best answer the question that I have is, how do we move forward in the midst of this?
So I don't know that specific example. I can't tell you what they're thinking. It just pisses me off. But beyond that, I really don't know. But I can tell you that every year the McKinsey does a survey called Women in the Workplace. It comes out in about October of every year. And broadly speaking, the number of women in leadership positions is going in the right direction. It is increasing. What I learned, which is something each one of us has the ability to impact, is that it's not so much the glass ceiling that is keeping women, minorities, other underrepresented groups from moving into management and leadership. Not the glass ceiling anymore. It's called the broken rung. So like a ladder has rungs, it has, like this, how you climb a ladder. The broken rung happens at the first level of management. It's the first level of managers that are promoting people. And that first level of managers promotes men over all other groups. Now, even women at that first level of management promote men over all other groups. So, of course, we are in this inherited system of patriarchy. We are. I have no idea how long it's going to take for us to continue to work at this. But I do know that understanding the broken rung is a really useful thing for managers to understand. When I have told managers about this, they're like, oh my God, I've done that too. And now they can change their behaviors. And when I think of the unfairness.
Oh, sorry, Lisa, can I take it that far?
Oh yeah, thank you. Sorry, I forgot. I got upset and forgot about you. Yeah, go ahead.
That's okay. 今の、説明された事例については特に認識していないのですが、聞くだけで、激しい怒りを覚えました。マッケンゼーは毎年10月に職場における女性についての調査報告書を出しています。それらを年々、積み上げて見ている限りですね、広く言えばリーダー格の女性は増えていて正しい方向に向かっているんですけれども、ここで我々は一人一人インパクトを与えることができる部分があってですね、いわゆるガラスの天井と呼ばれて女性やマイノリティその他ですね、経営管理職の中でですね、割合が少ない、部分が通り越えられないっていうところはもうそれほどガラスの天井ではなくなってきている問題です。これは、はしごに例えたらですね、一つ一つ段がありますね。これは弧というんですけれども、はしごの弧が、のうち一番最初にはしごに足をかけるところの弧が壊れた。ブロークンラングっていう英語が大切なんです。これはですね、一番最初の管理職へのステップのところで登用されるところで男性が圧倒的に多い。そしてこれがいつまでも変わっていないんですね。これがいつまでも変わらない。どうやったら変えられるかっていうところに私は今、感じているところです。そして実はこれは女性の人がそのマネージャー職の登用を決める場合も男性の人も両方とも同じように、男性の方を多く、選ぶ最終的に登用することをしているんですね。このような男性主体の、構図がいつまでも、続くとなると我々としてはいつまでこれが続くのかどうすればよいのかというところになってきますよね。
So to your question of how can I accept this, I don't want you to accept it. But I think I want you to understand it from a different perspective. We've been talking about edge theory of change, right? So edge theory of change applies to one individual person, a team, an organization, or a whole society. So if we think about the edge that we're on as a global society, the edge we're on is promoting people who fit a certain mold that are very much related to that machine model, that industrialized nation kind of model of working. Right? But guess what? It's not working. It's not working. So what's happening is we're getting pulled over the edge to knowing that we need lots of different perspectives. We need people from different backgrounds, people who've had different life experiences, all of these things to bring the richness to the complex problems that we need to solve. So let me stop there, and I'll continue in a moment.
そこで質問されていたそのニュースを受け入れることですけども、私はまずそのニュースを受け入れることはしてはいけないと思いますけれども、その意味で別の観点から捉えていきたいですね。今日の私の話はエッジの変化論について説明していましたけれども、それは一人だけであっても、チーム単位であっても、組織全体であっても、あるいは社会広く、または世界中の人間を集めた一つの社会に見立てても、エッジに立ってどうやって乗り越えるかっていうことも言える部分があります。そして今まではこのマシン社会ということで機械式にやってきた。そうすると機械にはめるということになると、決まった形のものしかそこに入れ込むことができない。でもこれはもう通用しなくなっている社会なんですね。そしてこれはもはや今後通用しないということはもはや知られていることです。いろんな見識を持った人々が必要。その意味でいろいろな観点から、いろいろな切り口を持っている人たち、そしていろいろな体験をしてきた人たち、多様なメンバーを集めていかないといけないことが分かっているんですね。
So one of the main things when a society or a person is crossing an edge is that there are very well-known edge behaviors. And one of those edge behaviors is called zigzagging over the edge. Because let's say a manager has the best of intentions to get rid of the patriarchy that got downloaded inside of them, whether or not they're a man or a woman, it doesn't matter, the patriarchy is there. They have the best of intentions. They're over on the secondary. They're working to have more diversity, not just for the sake of it, although that's good too, but because we need it. And then stress, worry, some external force. And what do? Zigzag back to the other side, right? What I want you to know is that zigzagging over the edge is normal, and it doesn't mean that it's over. What my coach tells me is that when someone zigzags back to the primary, they're just getting ready for a better leap across the edge. So the more that we can accompany those people instead of being mad at them, the more that we can ask them, what happened to have you zigzag back? Help them figure out what they want to do to stay over on the other side. That can be really useful. And let me also tell you that it is freaking exhausting for those of us who are marginalized to do this heavy lifting. But I don't know another way to do it.
Hold on, I'm just making sure I get your last piece.
I said it's heavy lifting for those of us who are marginalized, yeah?
Yes, I got it.
Okay.
そうですね、このいよいよエッジを渡るというところになったときに、いろいろな行動パターンが実はあってですね、一つはジグザグ行為があるんですね。例えばマネージャー職の人を例にしましょう。もちろん最善を尽くすという心意気です。そしてこの男性主体の状態に対してですね、変えていくんだということで、そして多様性は大事だと。 多様性は多様性のためだけっていうことだけでは本当はいけないんですけれども、もちろん非常に大きな、大きく役立つ多様性を推進すること。しかしですね、それを、割と、それをやろうと思っても、周囲の方からすると割とこの非常に孤立してしまったこのマネージャーになった場合に、ストレスや心配、そしてさらにはですね、外圧みたいなものが自分の外からですね、風が吹いてくる。そうするとジグザグですから、どうしても元通りのエッジを渡ったと思ったのにまた元のところに戻ってしまう。これは別にとりわけ不自然なことではなく、通常見られるものです。で、しかもこれは終わりではありません。このマネージャーはトライしたんだけども戻ってしまっているんです。でも次のジャンプに備えているとも言えるんですね。次のジャンプに備えるためにそこに、準備している。で、今度こそ乗り越えたままに行きたい。そういう人に対しては怒りを示してはいけません。近くに行って援護していくというような姿勢。それが我々少数側の人間にとってはしかしものすごく疲労が出てくる作業になるんですね。しかしやるしかない。そう思います。
Okay, everyone. Thank you for your kind attention and for your goodwill and for staying 10 minutes late.
皆さんご清聴ありがとうございました。10分間演奏してしまいました。最後まで